Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wisdom Seeker Live podcast for the week of Christmas here. And glad to have you with us. Hope that today you will share where you're joining from and be sure to engage with questions and comments because your engagement adds so much interest to what we are doing. And so I hope that you feel inspired to comment. And today's topic is about letting go, and we'll dig into that some more. But as always, we start the show talking about what is wisdom in terms of how we see it as part of Wisdom Seeker. And wisdom is a three-step process that we engage in. And wisdom starts with gaining knowledge, gain knowledge many different ways, and hopefully formally, informally, and on a regular basis, we're gaining knowledge. Something that I encourage people to seek to do, not just to limit it to when we're in an education environment as such. So, knowledge, and we don't want to stop with knowledge because it's help. Just because it's helpful doesn't mean that it does for us what we really need to do. So we're going to move on. And the next step in this journey to get into wisdom is to take our knowledge and begin to gain understanding about it. The understanding is how we use it to be able to solve problems, answer questions, work with our life circumstances, and make this knowledge personal, make it a part of our life. And that's when we start moving into to understanding. And in some ways, you could say we begin to gain experience. And that's the second step in this journey. And the third step of this journey is when we actually, step into wisdom. And wisdom is about seeing our knowledge and our understanding from a much bigger perspective. In fact, the perspective we're after is one that is outside of ourselves. And that means being able to see not only how our knowledge and understanding and experiences affect us and how we should choose in accordance with how it factors in our lives, but also seeing how it affects others and the world around us. That's when we begin to move into wisdom, is when we begin to see this much larger perspective about life and how we fit into it and how it affects others that we encounter. And so that's when we begin to have wisdom. And for those of us of a spiritual bent, we are looking at it in the fashion that we are seeing the world through God's eyes. And that's our goal, to be able to understand how the Creator sees things and behave in accordance with that. So that's what the wisdom journey is about. And it's always the desire that anyone and everyone become a wisdom seeker rather than just stumbling onto wisdom as we go throughout life. And the sooner that we learn wisdom, gain wisdom, the better off we are. So welcome, Jeremy. Glad to have you, my friend. Always appreciate your opinions and thoughts and look forward to hearing today from you. So the concept of letting go, it's a highly overlooked concept, especially in our culture today, that involves being so on top, so informed, so involved, so busy, and we have such a dearth of knowledge that we are hit with, data that we are exposed to, that we no longer know or practice how to let go. And on the event for today, The graphic that I put out is a graphic that my business partner, Anton Chumak, and I have developed over time, and we call it a bucket exercise. And this bucket exercise involves 3 questions, or 2 questions and a comment. First question is things that are in our life, this knowledge and understanding experience. We have to ask ourselves a question on a regular basis. Is this information, or is this situation or circumstance something I can control? And if so, that goes in the first bucket for this exercise. So the things that we can control. The idea is if we can control it, then make a plan, set goals, whatever is appropriate to that situation, and begin to take control of that, whatever it is. Then the second question is, if it's something that I can't control, can I influence it? And if so, how do I go about influencing it? And again, make a plan. Establish a way to do things to influence it in such a way that it is helpful to us, and if we're wise, how it will be helpful to others. And then the third bucket is for those things that we can't control or we can't influence, and which I would suggest that a great majority of what we deal with on a moment by moment, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, decade wise, most of those things, we cannot control them or influence them. And therefore, since we can't control or influence them, the only other reason to even consider them is that it adds data, knowledge, information to our life. And there is value in adding that, but there's also wisdom in knowing when we don't need it. We don't need to spend our time or energy on it. And the key with this third bucket is, what do we do with it? And we can't just, in many cases, we can't just ignore it, because depending on our circumstances, it's in our face. We're exposed to it on a regular basis. So what is left is to make a choice to let go of it. And what that choice looks like depends on individuals. Some people, letting go may be removing it from their life, choosing to take it out as part of their life. Example for me, and my having to let go is the choice that I've made in terms of media exposure. Now, for several years, I have determined not to expose myself to much of live TV or and very little, if any, of news media in whatever form it comes. Now, bear in mind, and I know people will go, well, so you're sticking your head in the sand? Not at all. Not at all, because as a wisdom seeker, I am observing what's going on in my life inwardly and outwardly. And then I'm also observing what's going on in the lives of people around me. I'm talking about people that I interact with and work with on a regular basis. And so I am not hiding my head in the sand. It's just that I am limiting my exposure to data, to information, because most of it comes in the category of things that I can't control nor influence. And so I have learned to let go by choosing not to expose myself to it. Other times, it may be that I cannot control or influence it directly. But if it involves people and people that I know and am concerned with, then I may have to make a choice to react and respond. And for me, through the faith that I live, one of the ways that I'm able to respond is through prayer. And so I will pray for people and then let go. And part of letting go means that we sometimes need to make a choice to do something where, even though we're letting go, we feel like it's being handled or it's being addressed, not by me, but by someone. And through prayer and faith, I let go and trust that my Heavenly Father is going to work for the people, situations involved in the same fashion that occurs in my life. And that helps me be able to let go so that I am not constantly dealing with things that I can't control and influence. And so the process of letting go is so important. Recently, it came to my mind, and I've written a couple of quotes in regards to it. But as long as we keep holding on to things, and especially things we can't control and influence, if we continue to hold on to these things, then at some point we're going to probably lose grip, lose hold on the things that are important, not just the things that are outside of our control and influence. And so we just need to be careful. And the other area of letting go has to do with our past. And we all have a past, and we all have struggles and pain related to our past. I don't know anyone that does not have that. And the idea of just ignoring the past is unhealthy. We have a lot of people, and I'm going to pick on men, especially men, that are trying to ignore the past, but yet they haven't let go of the past. They haven't made that choice, thinking that it won't affect or hurt them, but it does. So letting go of the past is very important. Doesn't mean we ignore it and don't learn from it, but it means we don't hold on to it and stay stuck in the past. That will keep us from living in the present. So important to get that concept. And the more we hold on to of things that we can't control or influence, the less we have the potential to hold on to the things we should, including holding on to people. Because there are times in our lives that we need to hold very tightly onto the people, the relationships we have, and learn and grow in those relationships in such a way that we are wise in those relationships as we work through them, and so that we also are able to give to others in those relationships. And by the way, the relationships that we are involved in quite often are for us to be helped by and be open to that. And again, holding on to things that we shouldn't will interfere with that. So making a choice to let go is truly a healthy choice. But what I'm talking about is not just trying to pretend it didn't happen, isn't happening, or that it didn't influence me, or that I can just ignore it and it'll go away. Not what I'm talking about. Choice of letting go is kind of like the choice we talked about last week about forgiveness. The choice of forgiveness. And the more that we can choose to let go of these things, we make a conscious decision, the better off we are. And part of that process, of course, is having to determine the priority in our life. Can we control it? Can we influence it? Is it something that we need as part of our life, which could include having it or them in our life for a time to help us grow or us to help them grow. So making conscious decisions in regards to what do we hold on to and what do we let go of. And I think this time of year, especially, is a great time to become aware and to consider and take stock. I know that it's a real common practice that people at the beginning of the new year will set new goals, or as an old saying is, that they'll decide to turn over a new leaf, change something in their life that they feel like is not healthy for them or needs changing. And there's not a problem with considering that. The challenge is that it is something we need to be considerate of and be sure that what we're changing is what needs to be changing, the root of whatever is affecting us, and be sure and change based on that. So, again, this time of year is an opportunity to really go through the process. If it's something in my life, in my world, or someone, can I have control over it or them even? And I will tell you, we are less likely to control people than we are circumstances. And then the second question that we ask is, can we influence it? Now, I will say that we have a greater likelihood of influencing people than we have of influencing circumstances. Something to keep in mind. And if we can neither control or influence it, then we should let go, whatever that takes, whatever process that we use best in our life to let go. For many of us that are of faith, part of that let go process is prayer, turning it over, if you will, and putting it in God's hands. Others, it may be meditation and really focusing in on things and how we can change our focus away from it by letting go of it. So really consider this whole process as we finalize this year. And for many of us, we have a lot of things that we need to let go of. A lot of pain because our lives have been impacted. A lot of unrealized goals. And I'm all for being determined and committed to what we need to be committed to and determined in, no doubt. But I think we have a lot of people that have never quite understood the principles involved in themselves and that awareness, because generally we as a culture, especially in the US, but I think it's pretty pervasive, that we are not taking stock. We're not aware of who we are, what we're designed to be, and so on. We are looking at life through a lens of perceived success and making decisions accordingly, even to a point that we have people that have made decisions and they stay in them, even though those decisions cause them to be miserable. And a big area for many people in regards to this has to do with our employment, our job, and not being aligned with those things, and not having congruence between our job and who we are. And that is a remarkably sad state for many people. And give you some ideas on the symptoms that that's going on is classic, and that is, are you living most of your life looking for the weekends? And if that's the case, there's the good possibility that you are not congruent in your life with who you are and how you're designed to be. And if that's the case, this whole talk today and this seeking wisdom in regards to letting know is for you, because letting go is part of the step to change and helping to go a different direction. And the choice of letting go gives us a lot of freedom then, not just time-wise or not just physically, but mentally and emotionally when we choose to let go of those things. For example, if you're in an unhealthy relationship, work, home, wherever, there are times where you realize that it's important that you let go of that relationship. Good, bad, or indifferent, sometimes we just need to let go of those relationships. And that will free us. It's not, please understand, letting go is not just a simple it is a simple process. It's just not always an easy process, because the things that we're holding on to have some manner of attachment for us, either emotional or mental. In some cases, it may even be spiritual, but some reason that we have an attachment and we're holding on to it. And that's why it's important to make a conscious choice to let go of these things sometimes. Welcome, Professor Jagdish. Always good to have you with us today, and appreciate you being here. So just to recap, letting go. And we don't want to just, generally speaking anyway, just say I'm letting go of everything and everybody. That's probably not a healthy approach. That's why it's important to go through some processes to determine what is it that I should let go of. And again, the starting point, and based on the graphic that I shared as on this event, is going through the bucket exercise, asking, can I control it, the circumstances, situation? And in this case, maybe a relationship. Can I control that relationship? If not, then we need to go to our second question. Second question is, can I influence it? And if you have an answer to that, whether it's control or influence, either case, then you choose to make a plan. You make a plan on how to either control it or to influence it in a healthy way. And that's all part of the decision, is what is the healthy way. But many times the real answer that we have is we can neither control it nor influence it. And therefore we should let go of it. Because if we don't, we can only hold on to so much. We can only grasp so much. And what happens is, if we are holding on to the wrong things, it may prevent us from grasping and holding on to the right things that we need to hold on to. And one of those situations is, if we're holding on to the past, it will prevent us from living in the present, or even being healthy and considering our future. And so letting go of the past is very important. And letting go of the past doesn't mean just ignoring it, because the past affects us and we have to learn from the past. So the idea is that we address and learn from the past, but we make the very important choice to let go of it in order to move forward. Let's see here. We've got some comments. Love to hear the comments from those here participating. First comments from Professor Jagdish. We need to let go the frustration and pain due to negative happenings in the past. Indeed, the pain, the hurt, And in order to let go, many times with frustrations and pain and all that we have from the past, we've got to address it. And that's why we talked last episode about forgiveness. Quite often, the reason we have a hard time letting go of the past is because we're holding on to unforgiveness. And that creates a problem for us. We're holding on to something that we shouldn't, that can keep us from grasping and holding on to things we should. And so, yes, we need to let go of the frustrations and pain due to negative happenings in the past. And that includes people and relationships. And then Zaid makes a comment that we need to set priorities. Indeed, it is in setting priorities that we determine what things we can and should let go of. And that's part of this exercise of deciding, can I control it? If yes, then set it as a priority. If I can't control it, then ask the question, can I influence it? If yes, that becomes a priority as well. It's a different level of priority. But if I can neither control or influence it, it should be something I let go of, and that it becomes a non-priority. Okay. Or if we have to initially, from an emotional, mental, spiritual standpoint, that it becomes a very low priority until we can completely let go of it. So it's a process we need to go through. It's a process that we should do to become healthy, to live in the present and be able to effectively consider a future. Part of the things that causes people to get hopeless is they're holding on to so much of the past that they have no grasp or ability to grasp the present and the future, and as a result become hopeless, to a point that, unfortunately, ultimate outcome is when you get hopeless and do not have an understanding or a place in the present, or do not see one for your future, people will ultimately choose to end their life. And it's sad, it's unfortunate, because there is no life out there that is unworthy of keeping. And so we just really need to be aware of, are we holding on to things that are can lead to hopelessness in our lives? Jeremy makes a comment, says, let the negativity go as we let the positivity grow. It's a simple saying to remember. Indeed, one of the things that I see in people is that they are so bound and so tied up holding on to negative events, negative people, wrong situations, that all they can ever see is what's going to be wrong, what could happen badly. And one of the ways that I like to express it is they find a black cloud behind every silver lining. It's also people, we talk about, half full versus half empty, different things. And, but yes, letting go of negativity, negative situation, negative people is an important part. But many times it's not a matter of just ignoring them, because quite often they're impacting us when we have not made the conscious decision to let go, disconnect, and remove it. And one of the ways that we've talked about on Wisdom Seeker, and I kind of call it our Wisdom Seeker Challenge, that to help us determine our priority is to, at least for a time, to disconnect from something or someone. Okay. And then while we're disconnected, that extra time and energy not used in that situation, that relationship, we observe. We start looking inwardly. How does this impact me? Good, bad, indifferent? What are the outcomes of this being in my life? And that's our observe. We also need to observe outwardly. Quite often, many of us are unaware of how things impact us because we're not paying attention. We get caught up in being busy and never stop to say, am I being busy with doing or being the right things in right way? And that's where the observe part comes in. And then once we observe, we want to then make the step into wisdom in regards to the things we observe. Start asking the question, how is this impacting me? Is it impacting me in a negative way? Is it impacting me in an unhealthy way? Is it impacting others in my life in an unhealthy way? This is especially true in our family relationships. Our family relationships are a priority for us. But if there are other circumstances or other relationships that are creating a problem there, it may be that those are the ones that we need to let go of. And so this process that we go through helps us determine what do we need to let go of. And by the way, letting go is not generally a single event. Letting go is a process, and it starts with a conscious decision that we need to let go. And it may take many cycles of choosing to let go before we are free from it. And one of the things that will keep us from getting free from things and being able to truly let go has to do with what we talked about last week, and that's forgiveness. That's why that's so important, because as long as we have not given nor received forgiveness that we need in our life, it is an anchor. It is something that becomes part of what we're holding on to. Even if we think we're ignoring it, we're still holding on to it, and it still impacts us. So choosing to ignore, which is something that especially us men do, we put it in our nice, neat little boxes in our life, and we close the lid and we think, okay, I'm ignoring it. I don't think about it. It'll go away. It does not. What we have to do, if we want to think in terms of things in boxes, is there are times where we need to reach into the boxes and grasp them, remove them, and choose to let go of them. Because if there is something in our life that we put in a box thinking we're ignoring it, at the end of the day, we're still holding on to it, and it's still impacting us as we choose. So the goal, again, and I like to keep reminding different people are joining, that is that we need to make a conscious choice to let go of things. Ignoring it is not letting go, because ignoring it allows it to still be around. We just are pretending like it doesn't have influence or impact on us. And by the way, as we talk about the bucket exercise, when we say, can we control it? Another good question to ask is it controlling us? And if it is, there is a great likelihood that it needs to be let go of. That's important. And the same question, is this thing, relationship or circumstances or physical things, influencing us? Then we have to ask the question, in what way is it influencing us? And is it a healthy way that it's influencing? And if it's not, then it's time to make a choice to let go. And how that looks will vary from one person to the next. One of the things that I caution is that as we determine there are things that we need to let go of and release from, quite often they have to be done as a part of a process. And the key is that quite often we will make a decision, and we will make a wholesale or a big decision to make a big change. And quite often we're not successful in it because we are not able to make that big a change in regards to things that affect us, that we can't control or influence, or that control us or influence us. And so, again, Anton and I talk about 10%. And so the idea is that as we start talking about letting go, it may be that we have to let go little bits at a time. And the key is to find out the things that we need to let go of that are most affecting us, and make a choice in that one thing and take that step. So let's see. I want to get back to some of the comments. Jeremy makes a comment, says, before letting go, we must forget first. When we do so, we accept the process of letting go. Choosing to let go involves choosing to allow ourselves to be released mentally and even emotionally with it. And again, it may not be a single act or a single choice. It may take time, something we need to consider. But forgetting about this, which means setting it aside, not letting it take our time, not letting it take our energy or even our mental and emotional capacities, by starting the process to forget. Let's see. I see. Jeremy says that what he meant is forgive. He is a victim of autocorrect. Been there, Jeremy, understand. So yes, forgive first. That I especially like the way you put it. We have to forgive first. If we try to let go of things that deserve our forgiveness or that we need to be forgiven for, we won't be successful. You can write that down, and I can guarantee you that to be the case. So if it's something in your life that you need to be forgiven for, or you need to forgive others for, and you don't do it, you won't be able to let go of it. That's something you can bank on. Zaid makes a comment. That's an important point. Most time it is controlling us. Indeed. What we don't realize is that the thing, especially if there's something we're holding on to that we can't control, it will very quickly start to control us. And that's why making the choice to let go of these things is such an important. Because when we try to ignore it, pretend that it's not there, doesn't matter, it will continue to potentially control us or influence us in a negative way. So part of the effort to choose letting go involves taking the time to understand it, taking the time to observe and figure out the wisdom that we need in order to make a determination. Do I need to be letting go of these things? And one of the key points here that, and Anton and I talk about it, and we talk about it on Wisdom Seeker, is intentionality. Part of the problem is so often we want to be comfortable and coasting because it's easy. We think that's attainment of success and peace. It is not. And so we need to, on an ongoing basis, be intentional about all of this. And part of that intentionality is choosing to find the wisdom related to whatever it is or whoever it is by taking the time to observe it. I would ask you to consider, how often do you go through life and then at some point someone either asks you or you come to a realization that there are things in your life that are going on, that are around you, happening, that you're not even aware of. And one of my favorite examples of this is we drive a lot. And as you drive, we get to a point where we are coasting, if you will, so to speak, and to a point that we don't even know what's going on around us. In our world of constant change, and the part of the world I live in, there's always building going on and growth, physical growth. And I find sometimes that I am just completely unaware of something going on till one day it's so big and I can't be unaware of it. Then it strikes me and I even go, well, wow, when did that happen? And that indicates that we are not being aware. We're not letting go. And that's why it's so valuable that we do the process of observing inwardly and observing outwardly, because by doing that, it gives us mindfulness of what's going on. And we can, as part of that mindfulness, can we control it? Or is it controlling us? Can we influence it? Or is it influencing us? And if we can't control or influence it, the next thing we need to do is to let go of it. And that's a choice, rather, it's different than saying, well, I'll just ignore it. And if it's controlling us or negatively influencing us, then we need to find ways to let go of that as well. And with all of this, the process of letting go is indeed that. Most of the time, it is a process. It's not a single event. That's not always true, because we know, for example, people breaking bad habits. There are some people that it becomes, it's more like an event. They make a choice, and we call it quitting cold turkey. And a few people, that happens, that works. Most people, it doesn't. Most people, it's a process. Just like most of the things we need to let go of didn't just appear one day and we grabbed a hold of it and that's the way it has happened. Most of the time, it is things that have happened or people that have come into our lives, and it has built slowly. And as a result, it may be that in order to let go, it has to be a similar process, and it has to be done slowly. And so the key to all of this, though, I come back to intentionality, awareness, choosing to observe what's going on in our life, choose to observe the people in our lives, choose to prioritize, as I believe Zaid mentioned. It's all part of this process to become better at being who we are. And I do have to make a mention, though, that all of this has nothing to do with making us have greater value or less value. Because unfortunately, in our culture, we have allowed these things, these people, these circumstances, whatever, to somehow make us feel like we have greater value. Not true. Our value is given to us by our Creator, and it's great value to a point that it became such a priority that it affected all of history. But that value is established, and you can't do anything to earn it, and therefore you can't do anything to lose your value. And others can't give you value, therefore they can't take value away from you. That value is established. So, as we have this conversation about, it's not about adding value or taking away value to us as a person. That's a done deal. That's a foregone conclusion for us. We can't change that one way or another. We should just accept it and live with that acceptance. And by the way, one thing that some of us need to let go of is continuing to try to increase our value. Can't do it. Not possible. Can't do it because you didn't create your value to start with. So letting go of trying to increase your value as a person may be the very thing that is holding you back. It may be the thing of the past that is keeping you from being present or to having a future. Again, value is done, folks. And the sooner you can let go of trying to establish your value, the better off. That's a good first thing to let go of for all of us. Jeremy makes a comment. Observe, evaluate, then take the next necessary steps to fix or let go of the issue that is being faced with. Sometimes we may not be able to let go. However, we can influence it through the right actions to fix it. We can, however, only fix what we can control. And if we can't fix it, then the best course of action is to let go. So it allows us to overcome the situation we're faced with. Indeed, well put, Jeremy. And part of the reason we have difficulty, and we, especially in extremes, feel tired, we feel drained, we feel discouraged. And part of the reason that we do is we have not let go. If you want an example, okay, most everybody could pick up 1 or 2 pounds, pick it up in their hand and walk around with it for a time. But if you were to pick up and hold on to a pound and then continue moving around, continue to do the things that you need to do, but you're holding on to that pound all the time, a couple of things are going to happen. One, whatever hand you're holding on to that 1 pound with is going to be limited in usefulness. Second of all, holding on to that pound eventually will cause muscle fatigue in your hand and in your arm. And eventually, if we carry it long enough and in the right circumstances or wrong circumstances, however you look at it, for long enough, it'll get to a point that it will create its own issues in terms of fatigue and hurt, muscle strain, joint hurt, different things. So letting go of so much that we can't control, that we can't influence, will make such a difference. It may be that the things you're holding on to are the things that are causing you to be fatigued and tired and discouraged, and making a choice to identify those things and seeking wisdom to know, is this something that I really need to be carrying around with me? If it's not, then start the process of letting go, whatever that looks like. On occasion, When we let go, we make a decision, we let go and we move on and we're done. But many times, especially in bigger, more important things in our life, it's a process. It's a choice, such as to start with choosing to forgive. And that process has to be gone through quite often to eventually be able to let go of that circumstance, that relationship, whatever. But it starts with choosing to forgive. And it may be that we're not even aware that there is an issue that we need to forgive for or be forgiven for. And that starts with this process of observing, figuring it out, taking time to know if that's affecting our lives. And given the volume of information, input, and what we're bombarded with all the time, the volume of that, taking this process of disconnecting, observing, and seeking wisdom, I think now, at least until you get to a point where you are in a better balanced place and more congruent, that it probably is something that needs to occur on a daily basis, something we need to set aside time for. For those of us that are of a spiritual bent, one of the ways we do this is through what is sometimes called a quiet time, a time alone with in prayer with God. And for many of us, it will mean reading the Bible to gain understanding. That is one way of disconnecting, observing, and seeking, gaining wisdom. Others, it might be meditation. Others, it might be in the form of taking a walk out in nature, disconnected from other things, phones and electronics and so on. But the key is, whatever it is, that we choose to observe. And part of that observation may be asking ourselves the questions: can I control it? If not, move it along. And then ask the question of it: can I influence it? If not, at that point, it's time to consider making a choice to let go of it, whatever it is. And that is something that we have to really cue in on, if you will, is to go through that process. One of the things we can't afford to do, though, is to think we're going to ignore it and it's not going to impact us, because it doesn't work that way. There are so many things going on in us and outside of us that we're not aware of because we're busy. We're busy working. We're busy seeking out things, money, wealth, position, things like that. And the whole time, we're not taking the time to be aware of these things that are controlling or influencing us, or that we are trying to control or influence that we shouldn't. And the key to much of it is the process of letting go, making a conscious decision. And if it has to do with people, part of that conscious decision is to consider giving or receiving forgiveness related to that person or that relationship. All part of this process, because the ultimate goal is that we're living a life that is designed for us, for who we are. And part of that process is, and part of the life that we engage in, is work. And so work has to be a consideration in all of this as well. And it is a good consideration to ask about your work. Can I control it? If not, move it on. Can I influence it? If not, at that point, it may be time to consider letting go. It may be letting go of a project. It may be letting go of an expectation. It could, though, ultimately be letting go of that job. Because at the end of the day, we're about being healthy. We're about living the way we can and should live, rather than the way that circumstances and others try to cause us to live. And when we can do that, when we can gain that congruence, then we begin to understand about finding joy and contentment. And in a word, a concept that is real important is by finding what is called abundance. And that abundance isn't about money or wealth. Abundance is about that life where we walk wisely, and as part of that wisdom, it's based on who we are designed to be as an individual. And learning that first step in understanding of who we are is that we are greatly valued. We have value that is intrinsic just by being a human being. And the sooner we can let go of trying to establish our value, the sooner we can be on about being who we're designed to be. By the way, being who we're designed to be doesn't make us more or less valuable. Our value is great. It's been established. It is remarkably great value as a human by our Creator. It's the understanding how much we are, how much value we have as a person, and accepting it, and quit trying to change it or make it better. Just be, because we are created with great value. And maybe we should do a show talking about understanding the value that we have as an individual. Don't know if that's something you might be interested in. Makes a comment or give feedback, and we can talk about the idea of addressing that as a topic. Let's see. Oh my, Zaid has asked a challenging question, and we've got limited time. But Zaid's question is, what would you say to those that only think we were a result of evolution? What I would suggest to anyone that thinks that is to seek wisdom about it. And let me explain what I mean. Is, first of all, we have the ability to use logic. And rather than accepting a principle, and this is true of anything, look at it logically. Ask, does it make sense logically based on what we do or don't know? And that doesn't mean based on what others say, it means on what we know. Second question is, does it fit what you observe? Does the concept of evolution, do you look at our world and our life and feel as though that it is getting better with each day, week, month, year, decade? Are things getting better? The last thing is consider the evidence and just go into it knowing that evolution has never been proven. It is not scientific fact. And I know that's going to upset some people, But in the same fashion, those of us that believe in a literal creation, we cannot scientifically prove it either. Neither of them are scientific fact, nor can they be proven as scientific fact. They are both going to ultimately be based in faith. And we don't have time to get into it. Again, maybe another topic for another show. Well, everyone, we're up against time. Please, I pray that today you take away the truth of your value. And with that in mind, then focus on figuring out what in your life you need to let go of. Because if we continue to hold on to things that we shouldn't, it will keep us from living in the word abundance. It will keep us from having joy and contentment and hope. So I just hope that you will seek wisdom in your life about what are things that you should and can let go of. It's an important part of being healthy as a person. So thanks for your time. Thanks for everyone here. Thank you for joining us, at least for or commenting in the last few minutes. Hina, glad that you're here. Come back and join us next Monday morning. It will be the day after Christmas and the last Monday before the new year starts. So join us. Love to hear from you. Love that you participate. God bless you this week. Wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah, and hope that this holiday time of the year is a good time for you, your family, your friends, in such a way that it causes you to find joy in life. So thank you. Take care. See you next week. Bye.